lecture number 4. We continue Dhamma group 3.3. So we learned Dhamma group 3.1, 3.2 last week, and today the last lecture of the Dhamma group 3. So next week we'll start Dhamma group 4. Just to recap through this question, this quiz of what we learned, to see if you still be able to remember what we learned from last week. Which of the following is not considered one of the main sources of the merit in Buddhism? In other words, which one that not generate merit? All right, it should be easy, right? The dana is the giving or generosity. The sila is the moral conduct, when you observe 5 precepts, 8 precepts, 10 precepts. And meditation. These are three major way to cultivate merit. And in the context of cultivating merit, what does Dhamma Savana refer to? Dhamma Savana is the Pali term, right? You see the word Dhamma here, and Savana mean what? Mean listening, right? Okay.
Listening to Dhamma talk.
This one, through listening to the Dhamma talk. And which of the following is considered a higher form of giving in Buddhism? We learn about things that we can give, right? Give of material things, give forgiveness, give of the Dhamma. So out of all those giving, the Buddha praised this one the most. This is the ultimate gift that someone can give to someone. You can give food, you can give material things to people you love, but don't forget to give them wisdom of how to live good life. Okay? In Christianity, a friend of mine used to share with me that he said, if you give people a fish, someday the fish will run out and they will die. So you need to teach them how to go fishing by themselves, so they can catch the fish and survive. It doesn't mean that we have to actually go fishing. Okay, that's what we break precept number 1, right? But it's implied that you need to be smart to survive. So by come to having the right friends or kalyana, which lead you to hear the Dhamma or the good teaching, then you can live good life. Okay, so don't go out there and harm people, killing all beings. Don't go out there and stealing someone's stuff. Don't go out there and sexual misconduct. That's not the good thing. So this is the Dhamma. The Dhamma, that's when you hear it, it got you thinking to stop doing that thing and shift the mind toward wholesome action. We have many Westerners come and ordain with us. Sometimes I give them a very simple explanation of what is the Dhamma. Most people think that Dhamma need to be heard from the Buddha or reading the Sutra. But that is not true. The Dhamma is already there. He just discovered it. It just depends on how clever you are to be able to identify this is the Dhamma or not. For example, if the father is going out in the evenings to go drink with his friends, and his 5-year-old boy noticed that daddy is go out and drink again. So today he stood up and he said something to his father, said, "Dad, please don't go drink. I don't want you to get drunk. I don't want you to get accident. If you die, who's going to take care of us? Me and mom." So by hearing this simple word from his own son, it got him thinking. And he said, "You know what? I'm not going through drinks. I love you. I'm going to stay home with you." So his mind inclined towards something wholesome, and that is the Dhamma. Okay, so anybody can teach us the Dhamma, even your son, your daughter, even your employee, even someone, your subordinate. They can have a word of wisdom that got you thinking and bring your mind to the wholesome state. That's the Dhamma. Which of the following is not considered one of the unwholesome thought? You hear the word, sometimes you see the Pali terms, apicca, payabhat, miccaทิฏฐิ, metta. All these terms put there for a purpose, for you to familiar with. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to try to memorize it. But if you see it often, it becomes something that you get used to it. D, right? It's easy to guess. Okay, covetousness is about greed. Ill will drive by anger, and the wrong will is a miccaทิฏฐิ, drive by moha, right? Okay, Now, the last one. In Buddhist teaching, what is the primary purpose of making merit? To gain material wealth and prosperity in this life, to ensure the favorable rebirth in the next life, to accumulate positive karma and for spiritual progress toward enlightenment, and to impress others with one's devotion and generosities.
C.
C, right?
To accumulate
Okay.
positive karma or spiritual progress.
Okay.
So,
So you, from the quiz that you see in each week, that's maybe appears again in the final exams. Okay, then that's the idea. I just like you to start familiar with the exam format. Sometimes there's a true and false. Sometimes they fall a multiple choice like this, and it's not just you to memorize. Okay, what are not in this group, what in this group, but also how can you really understand it, that how it works. Okay, like this we learn about how to make merit, right? Giving, observing precept and meditation. And when it's come to this, why we make merit, ideally why Buddhist people make merit. So something like this is about you to think beyond the question. That means you put the Dhamma that you learn, go beyond the memorization, not just I know what it is, but I don't know why the Buddha teach us to do something like this. All right? Okay, so this is the summary of the Dhamma group 3 in the big picture of what we learned, group 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. We learned the triple gems the first week, and the instruction of the Buddha not to do bad, continue to do good, and to purify our mind. And we also learn the root cause of unwholesome and the root cause of wholesomeness. This is lobha, greed, dosa, hatred, and moha, delusion. And we also learn what's considered the good, this one, and consider the bad in Buddhism. If you don't remember them, I'm sorry, okay. If you don't remember them by now, okay, please make sure that you go back and relearn. Okay, it should be, almost automatically know what it is. And we also learn about concept of merit and demerit. What is punya and what is papa, and how can one cultivate merit? What's the benefit of having more merit? What's the disadvantages of cultivate papa or demerit? So giving, observing precept, and purify one's mind. Today we continue this one and this one, the unfailing practice, the Apannaka Dhamma, and the 3 characteristics of existence, or the Tilakkhaṇa, or the 3 common characteristics of all things. So this is the topic of today, which is again the 3.3, group 3.3. Okay, so we'll be covering 2 topics today. Number 1, this one, the Tilakkhaṇa or Tilakkhaṇa, the 3 common characteristics of all things, and the unfailing practice, Apannaka Dhamma. What is the 3 common characteristics of all things? I think this is the most important, one of the most important of the Buddhist principle that the Buddha shared with us. Today, let's go into detail to know what they are. And I believe most of us seem to know what they are. We're familiar with Tilakkhaṇa, the law of Tilakkhaṇa, aniccaṃ, dukkhaṃ, anattā. But we may not know where it comes from, where this teaching stems from, what the idea behind this teaching. How did the Buddha discover all of this? And what's the importance of us to know all of this Dhamma that the Buddha revealed to all of us after his enlightenment. So in this sutta, Apannaka Sutta, the Buddha said, whether Buddha arise in this world or not. You see, the Buddha has S is plural, not just one Buddha. You know how many Buddha exist in this cycle of existence, in this cycle of samvara? Somebody said 1, somebody said 2, somebody said 5. Ideally, there were many Buddha in the past that come to existence. Countless of them, not just 1, not just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are countless of them. You think of the sand in the ocean. If you grab the sand in your hand, do you know how many sand in your hand? You cannot count. It's uncountable. But the idea is there were many people who have attained enlightenment, more than the number of sand in the 4 great oceans. You see, the cycle of existence is really long, the samsara. Human beings, we have gone through this. We were born and reborn, we die and reborn for a very long time because of ignorance. We don't know why we're here, we don't know where we're from, we don't know the purpose of life. We break precept, we go to unhappy realm, we come back to be human, observe precept, go to the heavenly realm, and keep on traveling like this. That's why the samsara or sangsara mean we travel in circle. We don't know why we're here and we don't know where we're going. The Buddha discovered this nature. That's why he said whether the Buddha in the past exists or not, it doesn't matter there is Buddha or there is no Buddha. All of these, they exist already. There persists that law, that stable principle of the Dhamma. They point to the same thing. This stable principle, that means it's never changed. It's always there, whether the Buddha come to exist and discover this law or not. That's the fixed nature. This is the fixed nature. It has to be like this. The fixed nature of the Dhamma. The technical term we call Dhamma niyama. Okay, Dhamma niyama. A Buddha, any Buddha, awakens to this and realize this. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Number 1, all conditioned things are anicca, translate to impermanent. Second, all conditioned things are dukkha, or suffering. And the third, all things are anatta, or not self. That's what he said. That's what he mentioned in the scripture, in the Buddhist text. So in other words, whether there is the Buddha come to exist or not, all of these 3 things, they exist already in the nature. The Buddha just realized it. He discovered them, he realized them, and he shared with us. Hey, wake up, all beings. This law exists. The Buddha discovered many laws of nature. He did not create any law. He did not create the law of karma. He did not create the law of anicca, dukkha, anatta. He did not create any law. He discovered them, and he shared with us. So our job is to understand what he discovered, why he wants us to know. The realized one, this is another term of the Buddha, realized one. Realized what? He realized to this truth of nature, this law of nature. He understands this, he comprehends this, then he explains, he teaches, he asserts, he establishes, he clarifies, he analyzes, and he reveals each law to all of us. That's the beauty of the teaching of the Buddha. Not just discover and then just keep it to himself. Even though it's hard to understand, he still shares with us, because there will be someone out there, not only in his generation, but in the future generation, just like us, because the Buddha is not here. He passed away a long time ago, but his teaching still exists. If someone smart enough and come to learn the teaching of the Buddha that kept in the Buddhist text, that person will understand what the Buddha discovered. That's called his compassion. He shared with us. When it comes to the law of nature, this law of nature, in short, number 1, number 2, and number 3. Number 1, sapphe sankhara anicca. All condition, all sankhara. Conditioned things are impermanent. Sankhara is one of the most confusing words in Buddhist terms. It's not easy to understand. But in this class, we're going to stick with something simple. Okay? Sankhara is a conditioned thing. Let's translate that way. Whatever is conditioned is called sankhara. What is meant by condition? Okay, before that, all sankhara are impermanent. Sapphe sankhara, you see the word sankhara here and sankhara here. Sapphe sankhara dukkha means all sankhara or all conditioned things are unsatisfactory. So now they translate the word dukkha to unsatisfactory. And then the last one, instead of using the word sankhara, this time the Buddha used the word Dhamma. Sapphe Dhamma anatta. All Dhamma are not self. The last one, it's still debate by many scholars. What does it mean? What does all Dhamma refer to? The first two, we see sankhara here, and we see sankhara here, which again, it's easy to follow, because sankhara in the first one are impermanent, sankhara in the second one unsatisfactory, but all of a sudden the third one changed sankhara to Dhamma are not self. Okay, but like I said earlier, we're gonna keep it simple. We don't want to spend time here to analyze, all of this, possibility of issue that can stem from this principle that we are discussing at the moment. So sapphe sankhara anicca, all sankhara are impermanent. So I'm going to keep it simple by stick with this translation. All sankhara mean conditioned thing. What is conditioned thing? Condition mean what? It cannot stay by itself, right? There has to be something stay together. Like this body is conditioned thing, is very obvious example. The body composed of earth, water, wind, fire elements. It makes body the body. There's 4 great elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Earth is something solid, right? We have bone, we have nail, we have tissue. Water is something liquid, something cohesive in the body. And the air, we breathe in, we breathe out. There also the space in the body. And the fire, we have the temperature in the body. So all this make body the body. So this is conditioned thing. So the easiest way to understand this principle, if we look at the 5 aggregates as an example, it helps us to understand this and apply this principle much more effective and much more understandable. So all sankhara, all the 5 aggregates, they are impermanent. All sankhara dukkha, that means the 5 aggregates also subject to unsatisfactoriness. So sapphe dhamma anatta, all Dhamma here are not self. So we can use the Dhamma here is the 5 aggregates are not self, and which you can find this translation in the several of the Dhammapada as well. They translate the Dhamma here to the 5 aggregates, just to keep it simple. You think of this when it comes to the law of nature. Back to the time of Isaac Newton, he discovered the law of universal gravitation, right? He was sitting there trying to figure out something, and he didn't know, how things work. And all of a sudden he noticed that there's an apple fall off the trees. All of a sudden it got him thinking. We have seen the fruit drop off the tree, like mango, apples, but we pay no attention. So we don't reflect anything of those phenomena around us. But smart people don't. They reflect of what they see. So they see, Isaac Newton noticed that the apple dropped from the trees, and now he reflects on that situation, that phenomena. The fundamental principle in the physics that describe the force of attraction between object and their mass, this is the origin or the principle of the law of gravitation, which discovered by Isaac Newton. So this law leading him to understand that maybe it's the same force that governing, the moon's orbits around the earth. So he think that far. So whether Isaac Newton exists or not, this law exists. Same thing with the law of nature. Many law of nature, it exists, and the Buddha discovered that there are something like this exists that we should pay attention. So let's get to know each one of them. What is mean by aniccaṃ, what is mean by tukkhaṃ, what is mean by anatta. Another name of this, the Tilakkhaṇa, is samanya lakkhana. Saman mean common, lakkhana mean characteristic. So the common characteristic of all things. When you hear all things, it means both being and non-being, or in other words, object. Okay, it applies to both living being and object, like the building, like the tree, like the mountain. This law governs all of those. Start from the first one. Anicca is impermanent. That's the translation that we always here when it comes to the word anicca. There are many terms that use as well, like instabilities, inconstancy, the condition of arising, the deteriorating, and the disintegrating. This is the idea of anicca. But in Pali, the anicca itself, it actually means something that rise and falling, moment to moment. That's why it's called impermanent. Impermanent means what? It cannot stay like this. It's continue to change, moment to moment. You think of this 5 aggregate, this physical body. The scientists discover that every 1 minute, 300 million cells die every 1 minute in our body. So that means our hair, our nail, our teeth, our skin today is not the same one as last week, as last month, as last year. It goes through all the process of change, moment to moment. We will notice wrinkle 5 years from now, having gray hair 10 years from now. But it doesn't mean that we're not getting old. We're getting old the moment that we were born. But we just not be able to notice that's, changing, that's all. But it's continue to change internally. That's the idea of anicca. Is there anything we can do about it? Nothing much, right? It's the nature of things. It's happened, and we have to understand, and we have to find a way to live with it. So everything, the idea of anicca is everything means all things, all conditioned things. The trees, the mountain, the car, the house, the building, including this body and mind. That means everything is conditioned. It's constant state of flux. It continues to change. Okay, arise and pass away, moment to moment. Nothing lasts forever. That's the idea. And this applies to everything, all experiences. Happiness doesn't last very long. Suffering also, okay, it's continue to change. It's come and goes. All experience, physical object, mental state, relationship, they're subject to this law of nature. So recognizing this impermanent help reduce attachment and expectation. It's continue to change. That's something that causes us suffering because we don't want to accept the change. A friend of mine, when she looked at the mirror, she noticed her first gray hair for the first time. And that day she cannot go to work. She cannot accept that I'm getting old now. I don't want people to see me having gray hair. There's nothing wrong with having gray hair. There's nothing wrong with having wrinkles. It's the nature. It's going to come, and we know that. But the reason we are suffering because we cannot accept when changes happen. We cannot accept that, oh, how can I get old? I'm only 40s. I'm not 60 or 70 yet. So she cannot accept that change. And that day, again, she cannot go to work. She has to do something about it. That's just a simple explanation of the idea of anicca. And anicca and dukkha, they're related to each other. Because dukkha is because of things continue to change. That means we cannot sustain the condition that we want it to be. The condition of oppression, the preventing from remaining as it is, the internal imperfection of things. This is the generic idea of the word dukkha. Dukkha means, in Pali, it means it's difficult to endure. It's difficult to bear. It's difficult to endure. Something's gonna go wrong. Something's gonna change. So what does it mean by preventing it from remaining as it is? You think of this atom, right? There's a proton and electron that keeps spinning, in the molecule level of all the objects. It's spinning very fast. If anything that's keep moving very fast, that means it's unhappy. It's being oppressed. It's being pressed. That's why it have to move. When you meditate and your mind cannot be still, why? Your mind is bombarding with either negative stimuli or positive stimuli. It cannot stay still. It's being oppressed. It's being bombarding with those stimuli. But whenever your mind is being calm, if you pay close attention, you'll notice that, hey, there's nothing there. The mind is so peaceful. There's no pressure for me to sit how many hours a day. There's no worry for me to do what I have to do after this meditation. There's no exam, there's no nothing. You just feel like there's no pressure. And because no pressure, the mind sabai, the mind relax, then the mind still. So when you meditate, make sure that you don't sit there and being suffering. We don't want you to sit there and having pain from your meditation, okay? Meditation is another term of happiness, so you need to make sure that you work on that. So dukkha, in this law, in the Four Noble Truths, you hear the term dukkha as well, and that dukkha in the Four Noble Truths only apply for the being things, like human being, okay, these 5 aggregates. But when it comes to dukkha in this law of nature, the Tilakkhaṇa, it's applied to both being and the things, like here, humans and the buildings. It continue to change. So the new building may look strong, 1,000 years from now, if we come back, maybe we die, we go to heaven, we reborn again, the building may collapse because nothing lasts forever. That's the idea of dukkha, which again correlated with the impermanent, the law of impermanence. It's continue to change moment to moment and it's unsustainable, cannot remain like that forever. And we usually translate dukkha to suffering. Again, it's not enough, okay? We will learn more about this when we talk about the concept of the Four Noble Truths. But for now, something being oppressed, something being, there's a pressure there. That's why it doesn't like it. The object cannot stay like that because it's being oppressed. In this Tilakkhaṇa, it's this dukkha again is cover not just the physical, suffering, okay, but it also covers something that's subtle, a certain form of suffering. There are all kind of feelings that we go through each day, like morning happy, afternoon sad, in the evening cry. Something like this is ongoing. It's ongoing non-stop. It's something that we, even though we know and we don't want it, when we experience it, we still suffering. So we don't accept the law of nature that we are living in. Like I said, if you wake up, you see gray hair, you see wrinkle, and you are suffering. The reason you are suffering because like this is subject to this law of nature. It's called dukkha. The body cannot remain the same as we want it to be. This is the reason why we are suffering, because we are unable to accept the change of this law of nature. We want things to be like that for a very long time, but we cannot. We cannot. What is anatta then? Anatta is another big word in Buddhism as well. There is the word atta here. Atta means self, and when you put a in front, that means it's non-self. The condition of thing being void of real abiding self. That's the generic idea of the word anatta, which need more explanation, right? The idea of anatta is that taught by the Buddha in the second teaching, which is Anattalakkhaṇa Sutta. After the Buddha gave the first teaching to the 5 aesthetics, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, then the Buddha explained what it means by anatta. The reason you guys still here and not be able to penetrate deeper to achieve enlightenment because you cling on something called permanent self wrongly. And that concept that people back then believed for a very long time. The Buddha rejects the idea of that permanent self or permanent soul. So there is no permanent or unchanging self or soul. What we perceive as self is a collection of this body that continue to change. And nothing possesses inherent, dependent existence. Everything is conditioned. In other words, anatta is uncontrollable. This is the practical meaning of the word anatta, which I will show you where this idea comes from in a moment. So all of this is not just, oh, I understand there's no self, there's no me here. Intellectually, we can think up to a certain level, but we still here end up suffering because we cannot let go and clinging on our self. Because when there is self, let's say when there is me, then there is mine. My car, my house, my possession, my this, my that. Unless we practice meditation advanced enough to cultivate the Dhamma eye, the inner eyes, the Dhamma eyes, So it allowing us to see things the way they are. Then we will be liberated from suffering. So for now, let's take this teaching a little bit deeper to see if to understand what the Buddha means by when he explained the word anatta. In Anattanakkhala Sutta, I capture some of this passage from the text to see if we can follow. The Buddha teaches the five aesthetic what he means by non-self. What do you think about this, monk? Is body permanent or impermanent? And the monk answer, impermanent, sir. Impermanent, anatta, right? I'm sorry, impermanent is anicca. But which is impermanent, painful or pleasurable? And the monk said, painful, sir, because it continues to change. When you don't want something to change, you end up suffering. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, or of a nature to change? That is mine, that is am I, this is myself. And the monk answered, it is not, sir. So now the five aesthetic, they understand what the Buddha means. But for us, we still confused, right? We still, what it means by this? Okay, permanent, impermanent. If it's impermanent, it's painful. It will always painful if you cling on it wrongly. Human, animal, object, they are conditioned. And when we cling on something that conditioned, because all conditioned things are subject to anicca, impermanent. All conditioned things also subject to dukkha, because not only it continues to change, it's unsustainable. So if we cling on whatever it is that condition, human, animal, object, experience, feeling, we will end up suffering. Anything that of a nature to change, you name it. If you know this thing will, has a nature to change, if you cling on it, you fight against this law of nature, you will end up suffering, because you cannot win. You either learn what it is, how to work with it, then you can be a little bit of peace when you experience something that you don't like. So this is an advanced teaching, okay? Because at the end of this teaching, all of those five monks, they attain arahantship when they understand that, hey, there is no permanent self. There is no me, there is no mine. This is mine, this is I am, and this is myself. There is no such thing. They understand, but we don't. In another teaching, the body, Buddha talk about the body. The body is not self. Why is that? Now, were this body self? In other words, if this body is actually self, this body would not tend to sickness. And one might get the chance of saying, you may be able to say in regard to the body that, let my body become dust for me, let the body not become dust for me. In other words, we can tell the body, if the body is self, that means you have full control over it. You can tell your body not to get sick, not to get old, not to die, to remain young, to remain handsome, to remain beautiful forever. If you can control, that is self. If you cannot control, that's considered non-self. So non-self, the idea of non-self is uncontrollable, according to this particular teaching. So ignorant people, ignorant beings just like all of us, we usually cling on something impermanent as permanent. We cling on something that's suffering as happiness. We cling on non-self as self. We cling on something that's not beautiful as beautiful. This is us. This is human being. And why? So we have to think of we learn the idea of the kilesa, right? All of this driven by avijja. We don't know that we don't know. We don't know what caused us suffering. So we trapped in the realm of suffering for a very long time. We don't know what drives us to cling. We don't know how did the idea of the sense of self, how did this idea get implanted into our mind the moment that we were born? We have no idea. We born just like that. So bhikkhu, all khanda, all these five aggregate are insubstantial. They are not subject to one control. The Buddha emphasized again, the body is not yours. The body is not yours. They are conditioned phenomena. Body and mind, they are conditioned. body conditioned by earth, water, wind, fire. The mind also conditioned, right? We will talk about the idea of this again in the concept of the five aggregate. But for now, we need to understand why the Buddha mentioned this law of nature. Because if we don't understand them, we will end up suffering. We cling on something that we're not supposed to cling on. Anything you name, your education, your success, your money, your relationship, your health, if we cling on those things that consider that subject to change, we will end up suffering. We need to let go. We know that we were born, we're getting old, we're getting ill, eventually we die. Everyone's subject to the same law of nature. When we go to the funeral, someone we love, we cry. Why? Because we cling on, right? We don't want that person to die. And we also don't want ourselves to die as well. And when death is coming, we get worried. Oh, I don't want to die. Or when I, get infected by the COVID, a lot of people die. And am I going to die too? So we get worried. That worry implies that we are suffering. We experience a painful feelings because of that worriness that we might be dead because of COVID-19 infection. And who actually are we? Who is actually self? That's something we should reflect deeper. For now, we still ignorant. We cannot let go of the idea of the self, but at least we should understand that, hey, there's the Buddha mentioned about this, and we should understand this law of nature. This body, the body is disease, a boil, a dart, a misery, and affliction. The body is conditioned thing. Keep in mind that we just learn what the Buddha teach us. Whatever subject to condition, it's painful. If we cling on that, we will end up suffering. We have no control over it. It's disease, the body, prone to illness and deterioration. Born, ill, getting old and die, and we know that. The body also a boil. A boil implies that the body can be a source of pain and discomfort. And the body is dart. It indicates that the body can be a source of sharp and sudden pain. All of a sudden, a man gets the diagnosis that, oh, you have a 4th-stage cancer, you're about to die. And then a man is suffering because he doesn't want to die. And he is not ready to die. And in fact, nobody is ready to die, right? We also have a lot of things we want to do. We want to stay with people we love, the work that we love for a really long, long time. And the body is a misery. It's emphasized that the body can be a source of ongoing suffering. So if today you wake up healthy, you should feel grateful for that. Guard your mind to be happy, guard your mind to be calm, guard your mind to enjoy that, good health that you have. Don't allow your mind to be suffering or inclined towards something unwholesome, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Illness may come. In last week, all of a sudden I have headache, I don't know why, and then the diarrhea, I don't know why. I want to sit 4-5 hours a day, according to the rainy season as one of my plans, and then I cannot, and then I end up suffering, and nothing much I can do. Okay, so again, it's misery, it's ongoing of suffering. Be prepared for that. Something's gonna go wrong. But the most important question is, what do you do when something's go wrong? Something doesn't go the way you expect. Can you remain happy? Can you remain calm? That should be the right view of Dhamma student, to deal with all kind of painful experience wholesomely. And afflictions suggest that the body itself can be seen as the burden or the source of trouble. It's unstable and uncontrollable. A lot of things can be happening in this body. So the benefit of the Tilakkhaṇa, this law of nature that discovered by the Buddha, all conditioned things are impermanent. Just to repeat again, they also suffering, unsustainable. So the first one, they continue to change. Okay, whatever condition, they continue to change, and they also unsustainable. Nothing much you can do, and they also non-self. You cannot control over that change that's coming. If you can accept this law of nature, you will end up suffering badly. So we need to somehow, find time to study Dhamma like this. That Dhamma medicine can heal us when the time that suffering come and visit all of us. So be prepared. One who see this by wisdom This is the Buddha get to the point. If you see this, see what? See all of this. Then one is weary of suffering. This is the path to purity. That's why the law of Tilakkhaṇa, or the three common characteristics of all things that the Buddha revealed, it's extremely important for us to understand, to work with this law. Then we will not be suffering too much. So if we see this by wisdom, if we see that everything that's subject to change, it will end up suffering if we cling on it. If we see, we understand, and we don't cling on them, then we will be liberated. This is the path to purity that the Buddha emphasized. That means there is no more suffering. So the benefit of this, there are many of them, at least 3 of them. If we understand and we can accept this law, it helps us to let go, forgive, and not careless. Let's say, the same example, if notice that there is a gray hair for the first time, okay, acknowledge it, accept it. Remind yourself that you are getting old. That's why you have gray hair. That means maybe, you're no longer a teenager no more. You're getting closer to be old people and eventually dying. So time is running out. Let's, wake up and do good things. Learn how to forgive, learn how to forget, learn how to let go something that's not worth clinging on. And it helps us to be sympathy and loving kindness toward others, because everyone, people you love and people you hate, they're subject to the same law of nature. They're getting old, they're getting ill, and they also die. So there's no point for us to hold resentment toward anybody in this world, because you will not be able to be happy if you have habituated yourself that way. Go learn to be more sympathy, learn to expand more of your loving kindness to yourself and people around you. Okay, and ultimately it helps us to develop this passion and less clinging on the thing around us that much. Okay, human, animal, object, your relationship, your health, your car, your success, your education. Don't cling on them too much. At the end of the day, you should reflect of this law of nature, to this passionate, to let go of those clinging. Then the mind come back. Then you can find peace of mind. Okay, because many people experience suffering, and at the time of death, because maybe the richer a person become, maybe the more suffering they also become, because they worry about their wealth, their money, their land, their business. A millionaire is about to die, but what's going to happen to all of this that I built, all of this that belong to me? I cannot let go. And don't wait until that time comes. We should develop the idea of letting go, on a day-to-day basis. As a Buddhist monk and nun, in the evening chanting, we do the chanting, and there's a 10 reflection that we do every day. So we're subject to get old, we're subject to get ill, we're subject to die, we will separate from the thing we love, and we also subject to the law of karma. We do good, we get good, we do bad, we get bad. So it helps us to let go. Okay, this passion and less clinging in life. Okay, and that's also related to what we about to learn in the next topic today, which is the Apannaka Dhamma. Apannaka Dhamma is the teaching that is called unfailing practice. But before we get to that, I'd like to emphasize here one more time that the reason, why someone following the teaching of the Buddha, ultimately, the final goal of the holy life is this one: the destruction of lust, hatred, and delusion. This is the final goal of the holy life. Whether you a monk, a nun, female supporter, male supporter, doesn't matter. If you decided to following the teaching of the Buddha, that means you understand, you hear the Dhamma, you understand, you have faith, and then you start walking down the path that taught by the Buddha. The Buddha point to something ultimately, there's something that we can achieve called Nibbana. And he also teach us how to get there. But we don't know when we're going to get there. But it doesn't matter. As long as you still keep walking on the path toward Nibbana, you will get there one day. And what we are about to learn next is something that helps us to get there faster. It helps us to stay on track, so we not fall off the path of enlightenment. It's called unfailing practice, or Apannaka Dhamma, which is appear in many places in the Buddhist text. But keep this concept in mind, okay? Ultimately, you may not want to realize Nibbana this lifetime, or Nibbana may be something that you feel like, oh, it's too far from me. It's not something for me at the moment. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, this is what it is. This is what it is. a monks ordained, walking toward Nibbana in the fast track. The lay people not in a hurry, but one day, I might want to be there too, but not this life, not next life. I'm still enjoying having family, kids, traveling, money, vacation. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with this. The Buddha never said, oh, don't get married. Everyone have to be a monk or nun. He never said that. But he teach us that there's something that exists in the law of nature like this, that we should, at least we should open up our mind for this information about Nibbana. If you come from non-Buddhist background, you may not believe in the law of karma, you may not believe in the life after death, because there is no law of karma in some other religions. When a man dies, he's died. Whether he go to heaven or hell, it depends on one super being to make that judgment. But according to the teaching of the Buddha, it's opposite. You in charge of your life. Whether you go good place, bad place, no one can help you with that. You are having full control of your own destiny. If you study, open up your heart to the teaching of the Buddha, you will come across this useful information to help you to reflect of how to live good life. So sometimes I look at Buddhism, it's not religions, it's not philosophy, but Buddhism is actually the holistic education system about life, the truth of life and how to live good life. And it's universal. Universal, that means anybody can come and learn and put into practice, then your life will be happy. So ideally, it's about purify our body, speech and mind until it gets to the purest state. And when that happens, the person will experience something called Nibbana. So that's another meaning of this sentence, to destruct, to uproot the defilement completely out of your own mind or your life, the greed, the hate, and the delusion. And when this done, the job is done. As long as we have this thing in the mind, so the journey is still ongoing. We still know it will be ongoing process for a very long time. So today we're going to learn something called Apannaka Dhamma, the unfailing practice that help to keep us on track. That teaching teach by the Buddha. The idea of unfailing practice or Apannaka. It's okay, today you learn a new Pali term, Apannaka. What is Apannaka? It's unfailing practice. Apannaka can translate as unfailing, the certain, definitely, you cannot fail, or incontrovertible. It's a universal application. It refers to a practice or approach that is always beneficial. It beneficial all of us, monk, nuns, male, female, or Buddhist, non-Buddhist, doesn't matter. It benefits us all. It's universal. And following this practice leads to a good life in this present, in the future life as well. You cannot go wrong with this. So when it comes to Apannaka, according to the book that we use, in the Naktham, in Thai and in English, you usually get to see the body of knowledge, but you may not know where it comes from. But today I'm going to show you where this teaching comes from. This one. The Apannaka Dhamma is in Pali canon. It's an important concept in Buddhist teaching, which comes from this Apannaka Sutra, which we will explore and I will summarize to you in a moment. But let's take a look at what the Buddha mentioned in the sutra first. Monks, when a monk has three things, his practice is unfailing. Wow, the Buddha opened the sentence quite interesting. If you have these three things, your practice cannot go wrong. You will be success in your spiritual development. He has laid the groundwork for ending defilements. Wow, this is the key word. If you have these three things, it will lay down the foundation for you to remove the defilement from your mind completely. That's what it means. Because this is the ultimate goal, right? And how can we make this happen? How? There are many ways. But in this teaching, the Buddha point to another approach, that if we practice three of this, it helps us to get there faster. It's when a monk, number one, guard the door of sense or the sense door. We call indriya, samvara, insi sangwon. When the monk eats in moderation, bhojane, Mattāññutā. And when a monk is dedicated to wakefulness or jāgariyaṃ. That's the Pali term. Three things. 1, 2, 3. That's what it's said in this particular sutra, Apannaka Sutra, from Anguttara Nikaya 3.16. So when you study any sutra, any teachings, if you read the text by yourself, I suggest you to develop a detective mind. Don't just believe what you read. You develop the detective mind. Try to detect what the Buddha actually means, what the real meaning behind the text that you read. Because the book that we read, including the Tipitaka, someone has to make the book, right? There was no Tipitaka in the Buddha time. There must be an editor, there must be somebody get together and come up with the idea and make sure that this idea get printed in letter. It's become the books. So something may add on, something may get lost, we don't know. But at least the Buddhist text is the closest resource that we can get to the authentic teaching of the Buddha. So when we read, again, take your time to read, no rush to finish, and try to understand the meaning behind that. So in this case, if this what you read, how much do you learn from this? What is the key term that you should pay attention? There are three things the Buddha mentioned. Okay, if you have these three things practice, you cannot fail. You cannot fail to do what? You cannot fail to do this job, to remove the defilement in your mind. You cannot fail. The Buddha guaranteed that. When you do these three things, okay, do what? Number one, sense control. Control what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, and what you think. And then eat in moderation. Okay, that's interesting. And then dedicated to wakefulness. Okay, we get to know each one of this one by one in a moment. Okay, that's what you see in the text. So to see it clearer in this format, there are three things that the Buddha mentioned in this teaching, the Apannaka practice. Number one, guarding the sense door. Number two, moderation in eating. And number three, practice of wakefulness. Okay, make sure you memorize that and make sure you reflect on that. Today I'm going to take you deeper than this. You may not be able to find this information on your own because it's too many teaching in the Buddhist text. And when it comes to this, you may realize that, oh, how come the Buddha teach only these three things? And how can I attain Nibbana just by following these three things? Is that all? Or is that something before this? Or something beyond this that the Buddha did not mention? The answer is yes. There's something before this and something after this too. You have to keep in mind that every teaching that appears in the Buddhist text, the Buddha gives the teaching to different group of audience. Sometimes monks, sometimes lay people, sometimes the king, sometimes the farmers. And even he gives the teaching to the monk. Each group of monks have different way of understanding of Dhamma. Sometimes the Buddha gives a long teaching to this group of monks. Sometimes he gives a very short teaching to this group of monks, even though it's the same teaching. Because he knows the students. Some students, this three things enough. Some students, this three things is not enough. In one teaching, the monk asked Sariputta, why the monk disrobe? Out of everything that Sariputta understand the Dhamma, Sariputta pick a few things. If the monk don't observe precept, if the monk don't guard the sense door, if the monk don't eat in moderation, if the monk don't practice wakefulness, actually he mentioned these three things as well, then that monk cannot last long. Then that person cannot last long in this spiritual path following the teaching of the Buddha. To me, it's quite amazing teaching. It's quite interesting why he picked three of this. Why he did not review all the process of how a man can become success in this spiritual journey, which I will show you at the end of this teaching today, in this lecture today. Okay. Number one, control the sense door. Why it's so important? The reason we study Dhamma is to help us to lessen suffering. And we know that suffering comes from not being mindful. Suffering comes from the kilesa, the greed, the hatred, and the delusion. So we need to understand that principle first. Then we can connect the dot. Okay, guarding the sense door. What's the benefit of doing this? Does it has anything to do with defilements? Why it's so important? Why the Buddha picked this one as number one in the Apannaka Dhamma, that unfailing practice? Okay, so today, again, we just gonna scan through this together, because the time is not allowed for us to go in detail. But anyway, at least you see the picture. Okay, human being, man or woman, we perceive things through this door of sense, right? We see things, hear things, smell things, taste things, and touch things, and then it become our thinking. We call contact. Contact. When the mind see the form and there is a consciousness or the vinyana, the chakhu vinyana or the eye consciousness, then we know what it is. When we hear the sound, if the sound is good, if the hear is good and there's a sound coming to the ear and there's ear consciousness or sota vinyana, then we know what it is. This is called contact. And when there is a contact, what follow after this thing happening is called feeling. And when we feel, it gives trigger to tanha, bhava tanha, kama tanha, bhava tanha, vipanha. And when it gives to tanha, usually it will end tanha. Whenever tanha start to function, then the person may end up suffering, because it will formulate the thinking. It's called mental formation. And then we take action based on those tanha that arise in the mind. The thinking can be good thinking, bad thinking, neutral thinking. If you are mindful here, you can be safe. If you're not mindful here, then most likely your decision will be unwholesome, right? You see something you like without being mindful. Beautiful clothes, the new iPhone, the new iPad. You walk down the mall, the eye see that object. It go to the eyes, it go to the mind. The mind feel, I like it. Why we feel like it? Because there's a tanha inside of the mind. We crave for something like this all the time. And then before you know it, you buy it already. Even though you may not have money, you can borrow someone, you can use your credit card first and then end up suffering later at the end of the month. You sacrifice your suffering, not having money to pay, but you want that thing badly. That's happened all the time. So this is very important in Si Sangwon, control the sense door. Because how do we know tanha arise? Where does craving arise? It arises from this door of sense. Whatever seems enduring and agreeable in terms of the world, this is called kama sukha. The happiness that comes from sense pleasure. See something we like? That is where craving arise and develop. To the eyes, to the form, to the ear, to the nose, to the tongues. So in one teaching, Sariputta explained that this is where tanha can come to you. Come to the form, craving for sound, craving for smell, craving for taste, craving for tangible object, and craving for mental object. Even you, sometimes as a meditator, you can be suffering. You crave for your previous good experience. You sit yesterday, you feel so good, and today when you sit, you want the same experience, but you cannot have it. When this happen, this session gonna be a painful session, because you sit there and crave for yesterday experience or last week experience. You see, because what drive that behavior is the tanha. It's happened very quickly, so we have to be very careful when it's come to this. That's why guarding the sense door is very important. When you see things, my teacher used to, he said, the first step to prevent this from happening is to be mindful of. You don't try to see something that you don't have to see, then you don't have to see. Something that you don't have to hear, then you don't have to hear. What he means by that, if you as a monk or meditator, you sit there and spend 1 hour reading newspaper or search on the social media, then you cannot have good meditation that day. You open up your eye, your ear to see things that you don't have to know that, you don't have to see that. That's why in the monastic training in the first month, we not allow the new monk to have the phone. We not allow the new monk to have access to internet or computers, to prevent them from this, to prevent this thing from happening. So they have more time to spend with themselves. Okay, so but if you have to see, if you have to talk, if you have to do things, do it mindfully, because it's gonna give rise to tanha. Through those, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch. So be mindful of what you watch, what you read, what you listen. Who do you hang out with? If you hang out with people who talk a lot, then you're going to talk a lot. You're going to hear a lot, the stuff that you don't need to hear. Then it affects your meditation. Avoid overindulge in entertainment. Practice moderation in using social media and technology. This also benefit us as well. And when seeing, hearing, experiencing something, observe without immediately judgment. Just hear. Okay. When you see, you just see. When you hear, you just hear. When you smell, you just smell. When you taste, we just taste. You know what it is. Okay, you know the food is delicious, but you don't have to elaborate that thinking, wow, I want more of this. Then rushing yourself to chew, to swallow, to take the next bite, and to go take another plate of the same dish. You lack of mindfulness. You just acknowledge, okay, the food tastes good, I like it. So take your time to chew, take your time to reflect. How much should I eat? When should I stop? That's the idea. Which again lead us to the second unfailing practice. It's called moderation in eating. Bhojane Mattāññutā. As a monk, we know what it is, which again we have been taught on a daily basis, and we chant before we eat, right? We need to, before we give the blessing or after giving the blessing, we have to reflect. This is important for us to have good health, so we can meditate better, we can meditate longer, and we can, stay energetic, to go through our practice. So you are what you eat. All the disease, most of the disease come from unmindful eating habit. Unmindful eating habit. Do you think that you pay close attention what you put into your body every day? Or you live every day drive by tanha of what you want to eat, not what your body needs? Think about it. This is what the monk chant, what the monk chant, right? And this is what it means. This is by rules. We chant before we eat, and it's in Pali. We may not know the meaning, but this is what it means. Wisely, by wisely reflection, you reflect before you put something into your mouth. I use this food not for fun, not for pleasure, not for fattening, not for beautification, only for nourishment and to maintain this body, for keeping it healthy, for helping with the holy life, thinking that I shall destroy the old feeling. The old feeling means the old, painful feeling, which is hunger, and not produce the new feeling, which is overeating. Before eating, we hungry, that's suffering. And after eating, we also experience another form of suffering because we eat too much. We overflood our stomach. Then you are suffering. You need to go find some medicine to relieve that pain because eating too much. Thus, there will be freedom from physical discomfort and living at ease. That's the instruction of the Buddha. That's what we chant. Somehow, we don't really reflect deeply of what we chant. This is the purpose of the monk, why we eat. And how do we know when should we stop eating? You see how the Buddha is very awesome teacher. He also teaches us when you should stop eating, not just select what you should eat. When eating fresh or dry food, one shouldn't be overly repleted. You don't eat too much. A monk should wander mindfully, empty stomach, taking limited food. This is how he shared with us. 4-5 more spoonful of food, you are full. Drink some water. This is enough for a resolute monk to live in comfort. In other words, when you feel like if you are going to eat 4-5 more spoonful of rice or food in front of you, that you will be full. That means you already full. Stop eating. Drink water. It will be enough for your body. But usually it's not the case, right? We eat until there's no more room left in the stomach, and then we drink water. And that's not the way the monk should be eating, or the spiritual people or the meditator should be eating. So how should we practice? Okay, eat slowly and mindfully. Put the phone down, put the television, turn it off. Just take your time to eat. I met one of the medical doctors. He looked very young even though he's old. He eats 1 meal a day, and he is vegetarian 100%. And he eats at least 1 hour and a half to 2 hours. I said, why you eat so long? He said, I take my time. He chew like 30, 40, 50 times until he makes sure that all the thing that's in his mouth is ready to be swallowed. So he used that time to practice mindfulness. He lived life like a monk. I feel very, grateful to have a chat with him. So it helped me to reflect on my behavior too. I should be more mindful than him because I'm a monk. But for him, 1.5 hours, sit there, take his time, careful what to eat, and take his time to chew, allow the digestion process at the beginning stage, which is in the mouth before it go to the stomach. How many times did you chew when you eat today at lunch or this morning? 5 times and swallow, 3 times and swallow, and that's something that you should reflect. Okay, eat slowly and mindfully. Stop eating when it's 75 to 80% full, and then drink water, and choose something that benefits for the body over something that may be harmful for your body. And now we come to the last one, the practice of wakefulness, jāgariyaṃ, the practice of wakefulness. This is the last item on the list in the Apannaka Dhamma, according to this particular sutra. Sariputta, when a bhikkhu has returned from his alms round, that means the monk went alms round in the morning, and when he come back, this is what he did. After his meal, he sit down, fold his legs crosswise, and set his body erect, and establishing mindfulness in front of him. And he said, I shall not break this sitting position until, through not clinging, my mind is liberated from the tense. What does it mean? This is practice of wakefulness. Okay, in the old time, the monk go alms round in the morning, and most of the monks, I believe, they eat 1 meal a day. So when they come back, they sit down and they mindfully eating. When they finish their meal, what they do all day long? There's no television to watch. There's no social media to check. So they sit all day long, either sitting meditation, walking meditation. No book to read, no teacher to ask questions. Most of the monks practice alone in the forest. This is called practice of wakefulness. That means after he finished breakfast, the monk sit. And this is how he meditate. He sit cross-legged with his body erect, and he develop mindfulness in front of him. You will see this teaching again in the Satipatthana Sutra of how to develop mindfulness. And then with his determination, he said, I will not leave the seat until I remove hindrances from my mind, until I work on my, the defilement, whatever, something that arrives in the mind. Like some monk have lustful mind, some monk has agitated mind, some monk maybe worry about things. So he will sit there until he take care of those issues that bothering him. That's the idea. So there are many case study, many example, great example in the past. Like this one monk, Jakupala, in one rainy season, he decided to not to sleep. He decided to meditate 3 months. He walk, he sit, and he stand without lying down. And with this determination, he achieved arahantship. But he also, the mind also went blind as well. But it's worth it to attain arahantship. Determination, that's called practice of wakefulness. But again, you need to know the idea of practice meditation or practice Dhamma is about finding the balance. You don't have to torture yourself. You need to know that, is this worth doing? Maybe some week or some night you feel like sitting all night, maybe once a month. It's okay to try to see what happens. But it doesn't mean that you have to stay up all night for 90 days. Then you may hurt your body, then you may hurt yourself, then you may quit, then you may stop walking down the path because you don't see the result. And the reason you don't see the result because you practice wrongly. It's more like self-mortification or torture yourself without making any progress. Okay, so you need to be wise when it's come to your own practice. So set time for daily meditation. If you are a lay person, 15-30 minutes a day is good. If you are a monk, you should sit more than that. Use free time for meditation or towards self-improvement, reading books, attend the courses that help you to develop yourself. That's better than spending time on social media and reading newspapers. And maybe take a short break during the day. Come back to mindfulness. Come back to your breath. You can do. You can do. This is how you put the idea of practice of wakefulness into practice. And when you have time, you have a chance. Once a year, you can set time for the retreat. You can go for 7-day meditation. Meditate with your teacher and learn from them, and hang out with the group of meditators, and that help you to make progress in your meditation practice. Because to do this at home is quite challenging. It's a lot of things at home that slow you down in when it comes to make progress in your meditation. Okay, I'm going to relate this to some of the teaching that I found that it is relevant and it's benefit for you to know. In one teaching, the Buddha said, if you do these 4 things, you get close to Nibbana. So, wow, this kind of teaching is nice, interesting. We just learned that if you practice these 3 things, you cannot fail in terms of removing the defilement from your mind, which is again moderation in eating, guard your sense door, and practice of wakefulness. And now the Buddha talk similar thing into different audience, different students. If you do this 4 things, you are getting closer to Nibbana every day as you wake up. First, virtuous behavior, which is what? You observe precept. A man without precept cannot go anywhere in life. He is going to end up suffering, hurting himself and hurting others. So the starting point is precept. See, and the rest, you see, is the same. The same of Apannaka Dhamma that we just learned. Guarding the door of sense, moderation in eating, and intent on wakefulness. And on top of this, observe precept. If you have these 4 things, you are getting closer to Nibbana. Don't worry about when you're going to realize Nibbana. Don't worry about it. Keep on doing this. You are on your way. You walk on the path. A bhikkhu who possesses these 4 qualities is incapable, Buddha said, incapable of decline, and is in the vicinity of Nibbana. I said, wow, this is awesome. You incapable of decline. You cannot be declined if you have these 4 things. Okay, so as I promised, this is the whole process of how a man can realize Nibbana. This is how the Buddha trained the monks in Mahasappara Sutra. If someone wants to achieve Nibbana, the ultimate goal is to remove or uproot the defilement from his mind or her own mind, greed, hatred, delusion. When someone comes to the doctrine or the dispensation of the Buddha, this is how the Buddha trained them. If that person is ready to be trained, he will train them like this, step 1 to step 10. This is he teach the monk. And what we learn today is only subtract from this 10 step. This is Apannaka Dhamma that we learn today. Okay, sense control, moderation in eating, and practice wakefulness. And before that, this one, the vicinity to Nibbana, the Buddha add one more thing on the list, which is precept, right? Come before guarding the sense door. This is the precept. This is a sila. Ottappa, also the prerequisites for precept. And then purify body, speech, and mind, and then pure in livelihood. This also consider fall into the category of precept. And when someone have precept, the Buddha introduced the next step. Step 4, 5, 6, guarding the sense door, moderation in eating, and practice wakefulness. And then go to the state number what? And now the monk is ready for meditation. This is about meditation. And this is about the panya or wisdom. Okay, so it's all coming down to what? Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. Then a man can realize Nibbana. Now you see the whole picture where these things subtract from. In the Apannaka Dhamma, you see only 3 things. But in the this Aparihaniya Dhamma, you see 4 things. But as you study more of the Dhamma, then you connect the dots and say, oh, wow, all this comes from here. So it's not just guarding the sense door. If you are new to the path, you need to understand all of this. You need to observe. You need to know what is precept, know how to observe precept. And you need to find a way to develop all of these skills. And then practice meditation. And then that meditation and that precept will lead you up to understand something special, which is called the higher knowledge or the wisdom. That's something down the road. and then you'll be able to uproot the defilement from your mind. That means the job is finished. There's no more work that needs to be doing. All the job is finished when a man can uproot the defilement from his or her own mind. So the unfailing practice, again, to keep it simple, living living ethically, mindfully, with self-restraint is always beneficial, whether you're a monk or a lay person. Okay, make sure you observe precept. Make sure you practice mindfulness, sati, sampajañña, and find time to meditate. And make sure that to develop skill of sense control of what you're about to do, what you're about to say, what you're about to think, what you're about to eat, when you should stop eating, how do you dress, how can you dress better than this. So all of this put into a day-to-day practice. That means you're on your way to better yourself, on your way to, to the higher Dhamma, to the higher understanding, and to realize Nibbana. You get closer to that. This is something that you can put into practice. Okay, so I'm going to give you the reference of this. I will send you this file. So if you have time, again, feel free to check them out. It's going to add on to your Dhamma knowledge that you already have. Okay, like I said, you don't have to limit yourself to what you learn in this class or the class that teach from different teachers. You can go beyond that. You can know. There's no limit of what you can know. So with that, let's pay respect to the triple gems and we take a break.